So thank you very much again. The topic of my talk today is, of course, Altmetrics. But what I would like to have with you is a discussion more about the concept of Altmetrics, particularly about the knowledge that we have acquired around Altmetrics, and also to have some possible discussions on what are the possibilities, the practical possibilities of Altmetrics with different purposes. So just a brief outline of my presentation, and I will start with an introduction to Altmetrics. Then I will discuss the recent knowledge that we have about this topic. I will discuss with you some of the challenges and main conceptual aspects, and I also like to discuss perhaps some opportunities for Altmetrics, for some practical opportunities. Okay, so perhaps instead of what is Altmetrics, we should ask why Altmetrics. So what's the reason why Altmetrics have emerged? Perhaps to answer this question, we have to give a step back and focus on a perhaps even more important question that basically everybody wants to answer. That is, what is the impact of my publications? So what is the quality, what's the scientific impact, the societal impact, etc. To answer that question, we counted with basically two main approaches. On the one hand, the peer review system, basically experts that would read a paper and say, give comments about the content of the paper, qualitative comments. And on the other hand, we have citation analysis and bibliometrics. We know that both approaches have limitations. So peer review can be biased, can be personal preferences of the reviews, etc. And citations are also not perfect. So there are citations that are given for non-very scientific reasons. Not all citations are really equal, or not all are given for scientific arguments, etc. So that's somehow so in this context of the imperfection of all these of these two approaches, then appeared the concept of Altmetrics. And the funny thing is that we don't have a clear definition of Altmetrics. So the Altmetrics were somehow proposed in the Altmetrics manifesto in 2010, but there was no clear expression of what is exactly Altmetrics. And this is something we'll discuss a little bit more later. As it was mentioned also today, Altmetrics are often seen as article-level metrics, but I would say that citations are also article-level metrics, so it's something not exclusive of Altmetrics. In essence, so if we would like to give it a kind of general definition, we would say that Altmetrics refer to mentions of scientific publications or scientific outputs in social media sources, social media tools like Twitter, Facebook, blogs, etc., or also kind of crowdsourced tools like Mendeley or Zotero. But what else do we need to know about Altmetrics? As I said, as some colleagues have said, is a bad term. So some colleagues said that it's a good idea but a bad name. The reason why it's a bad name is because it's a kind of umbrella term. It concentrates, so it refers to many different things, to blogs, to tweets, to pre and post reviews, also to policy mentions, to downloads and views sometimes. So actually it's a term that refers to many and quite different things. So that's why other terms have also popped up, like social media metrics, influmetrics, etc. And what we're starting to agree more and more is that probably we will need more specific terms for the different metrics. As Isidro mentioned this morning, maybe Twitter metrics, Facebook metrics, maybe these are too fancy terms, but probably we go more into that direction than simply having one term. That it might stay as a kind of popular term to know that we refer to basically everything that is not citations. But probably in the future we will face more specific terms for the different metrics. And of course, an open question regarding these metrics is if they really provide possibilities for capturing societal impact, the societal impact of scientific publications. And I leave this as an open question because this is still something that we're trying to grasp. So up to here, more or less, what is Altmetrics? So what's the main concept and some of the problems around the concept? But what do we know about Altmetrics? In the first place, we have to acknowledge that it's a new emerging research line within the field of bibliometrics. So we have that scientists from all over the world, from different institutions, have started to look at this topic. And if we would summarize somehow the main topics that have been discussed, we could say that they have been around coverage, about the correlations between Altmetrics and particularly citations, but also correlations with other bibliographic elements. Also, an important body of research goes to the analysis of data problems and data inconsistencies regarding Altmetrics. And finally, of course, also conceptual discussions on their meaning, on their value, so all these type of discussions. So let me start with some of the main results. Let's start with the coverage. So one thing that we can say about Altmetrics is that they are increasing over time. So this is based on data from altmetric.com, and we can see how in the most recent years the percentage of publications that have some Altmetric activity has increased, particularly considering that altmetric.com started in 2011. So that maybe also the explanation why is this increase. Although there is this important increase in the number of publications, we have to be aware that still the coverage is around 25, over 25%, 20%. That's more or less the coverage of publications that we can expect, at least in altmetric.com. Mendeley, for example, is a different story. The coverage in Mendeley is much higher. It can be over 70% or sometimes even 80%, depending on the field. But okay, so this is a first message. So the presence of Altmetrics in publications is increasing over time. When we look at the sources that provide these metrics, then we can see how, for example, for these 20% of publications that have some Altmetric activity in altmetric.com, we can see how Twitter is the most important source providing some impact evidence. Then we have other smaller sources like Facebook, like blogs, like F1000, news mentions, Reddit, etc. So then a second message. When we look at Altmetrics, and we don't refer to Mendeley, normally we are talking about Twitter. That would be a second important message. So let's have a discussion now about the coverage by fields. So in the graph on the top, we have the distributions of citations, so the density map of citations across, well, in a map of science. And then we can see how citations concentrate around the biomedical fields, the natural sciences, chemistry, physics, material sciences. So these are the fields with the highest density of citations. So the map on the top shouldn't impress anybody. It's what we know about citation distributions. The map about Mendeley is a bit, it was surprising because in the first place it resembles quite a lot the map of citations. So it seems that Mendeley has a similar distribution, but it's also true that we see more fields illuminated in the map. So Mendeley readers have a much broader spread across the scientific map. If we look at Twitter, the interesting thing of Twitter is that we see an inverse pattern compared to the other two maps. So if with citations and Mendeley, we would have a higher presence, a higher density of metrics on the right-hand side of the map. So that means physics, chemistry, the natural sciences. Twitter is somehow the other way around. So we see the more medicine general, the more psychology, social sciences fields that have higher densities of tweets. That could also give some support to the idea that indeed Twitter is more interested in the social issues of the social topics of science. When we look at the smaller Altmetrics like blogs or news media, then this is the normal map that we get. So a strong concentration around the multidisciplinary science journals. In other words, these metrics tend to concentrate around nature, science, PNAS, etc. So the multidisciplinary papers. So it's also something to keep in mind if we are working with blogs, for example. Okay, when we talk about the correlations with citations, then in the case of Mendeley, we find moderate correlations. And interesting is also that we have found a good filtering of highly cited publications. So if we look at the most read papers in Mendeley, we will likely find also highly cited papers. In the case of the other, say the smaller Altmetrics sources like Twitter or blogs, then we see that the very highly tweeted papers many times are also highly cited papers, but they also miss a lot of highly cited papers. So in a way, Twitter has a high precision in terms of identifying highly cited papers, but a low recall. So many highly cited papers would be missed if we would focus on Twitter counts to detect them. We have also found low correlations with other bibliographic elements, like number of pages, the length of the titles, the number of co-authors. So these are elements that have some relationship sometimes with citations. The relationship with Altmetrics is different. It's not as with citations. But the main message here is probably that so this lack of correlation between citations and Altmetrics is that they are essentially different. So we are measuring different things. And that's why we claim that we cannot really use Altmetrics to substitute citations. In a way, they represent two different dimensions, two different worlds. Okay, another important element is the inconsistencies in the data. So we did an analysis with 1,000 random publications from PLOS One, and we searched for them in different platforms, in PLOS, in altmetric.com, also in Mendeley for Mendeley readers. We look at Twitter and Facebook as well, and then we found differences in the counts. For example, we found differences that we couldn't always explain, like sometimes higher number of for example, decreased number of Mendeley readers, or simply why the Facebook count in PLOS and Altmetric.com are so different. So explanations can be that PLOS counts actions around Facebook, like likes and shares, while Altmetric.com is just counting the posts, that someone has posted a paper. But so that's also an important element to keep in mind when working with Altmetrics, that there may be differences, important differences sometimes, depending where I collect the data. And then, of course, we have the funny things. So here we have a paper that starts with a question. It has received more than 5,000 tweets. And of course, we have to be creative also in our abstracts. And then when you can get a high visibility in Twitter. So this is an example of what can happen in Altmetrics. Another example, these papers have received almost 7,000 tweets. I would say that the title is quite okay. I don't find anything, or also the abstract is okay. Does anybody know this paper? How you heard about this case? So basically, this paper made it to the final version of the paper, to the published version, with this string in the text. Some people call it a real citation, an honest citation. So this opened a huge discussion in Twitter, in blogs, in news, so we can see it in the scores. I was thinking with the talk of Jean-Claude this morning, this is an effect of openness. So that means that now our success is visible, but also our mistakes. And yeah, so I wouldn't say that this is a bad thing of Altmetrics. Actually, I would say it's good. It helps us to find weird situations in science. But of course, I wouldn't say that this paper has a high quality because it has a lot of tweets because of this. That's what we need to keep in mind. Okay, and then we have, of course, other problems, like Inconsistency is also within the same platform. So sometimes when you count Mendeley readers, you find differences that, again, are not explainable. So for example, sometimes papers have less Mendeley readerships in two different counts, and the second count has less readerships. We don't really know why is that. It might be because people delete their papers in Mendeley. It may be that Mendeley found that a paper was actually a combination of two papers and they split them. So we don't know. We have, of course, the problem of duplicates, so papers that are mentioned, so that have several versions of the same paper, both in altmetric.com and in Mendeley and in other sources. Metadata errors, noise, so all these are problems in Altmetrics. Also, some colleagues have found an important, or at least a relevant presence of cyborgs and bots, so automated accounts that provide tweets or other types of mentions. We have to be aware, of course, also of the biases, geographic biases, language biases, and also technical biases. So, for example, the strong dependence on DOIs to have robust counts on all these metrics. So, and this, for example, affects the humanities. Because in humanities, you don't find that many DOIs as in the natural sciences or the biomedical sciences. A note apart, I would give it for Mendeley. So it's probably the strongest Altmetric source. That's why I had this discussion with Isidro, if it's Altmetrics or bibliometrics. I would say that it's Altmetrics, because in the end, citations are produced, are given in a completely different context as readerships. So it's a relatively different type of action among scholars. Although of course they are not completely separate, they are not completely different. But yeah, I think that we can still qualify Mendeley as Altmetrics. Another thing that we have to highlight about Mendeley is the high coverage of publications. As I said, it can be a coverage of higher than 70% of publications that are somehow mentioned, included in Mendeley, so read in Mendeley. This moderate correlation with citations, this good filtering of highly cited publications, and also something very interesting is the possibility of modeling types of impact based on the type of users in Mendeley. So when any person opens an account in Mendeley, that person has to indicate the country and also the academic status. So it can be a professor, it can be a PhD, but can be also students and sometimes non-academic researchers. And that could give us the opportunity to look also at what non-scholars are doing with publications. So which publications are being captured among users that are non from universities or from research organizations. So, and what are then the challenges? So we have discussed several elements, several things that we need to discuss. We need to understand better, and perhaps, so an important one is, of course, the conceptualization and the need of theoretical frameworks. So here we have started to do some work, and we are starting to discuss theories like the concept symbol, other social theories, and also partially citation theories could have some support, some help in order to understand and discuss Altmetrics. We also need to work on the standardization of the data and the standardization of the different tools. I would say that the problem of data quality is very important, and also when we construct indicators based on Altmetrics, we need to be aware of them. So problems like the outliers that I just mentioned need to be considered. The problems of the biases, the robustness, the reliability, that we don't get completely different metrics a week after your first measurement. We also have the risk of the potential trivialization of these metrics if they are just used for, say, a researcher looking at himself or a group of researchers just commenting their Twitter H index. So that would be simply a trivialization of maybe an interesting tool. Yeah, the problem of manipulability, of course, it's very easy to buy tweets and Facebook likes. So it costs, I think, $50, just a bunch of them. The problem of normalization, like we have with citations, we have seen differences across fields. So probably we need the same for Altmetrics to be able to compare, let's say, the number of Mendeley readers in chemistry with the number of Mendeley readers in social sciences. And we also need to work on the proper production and use of these new metrics, having kind of proper uses or good uses of Altmetrics. Okay, but what are then the opportunities? Because there are opportunities. Regarding Mendeley, I would say it's probably the most promising tool in terms of indicators, in terms of creating new indicators. So there are, for example, some colleagues that have started to look already at the normalization of Mendeley readers and so on. For the other Altmetrics, Twitter, blogs, I would say that we are not yet there. So there are many things that we need to take into account. And in the end, maybe the final result is not that we have an indicator, just the number of tweets, but we could refine that indicator much better. So the number of tweets given by a group of users that we consider relevant for a specific stakeholder, a specific unit. I would say that all these tools, so one of the things that I like of Alessandra's talk was that he mentioned the importance of the wealth of data. So it's not only that I look at the number of tweets, I also look at who is tweeting me, and I can also look at what the Twitter is saying about me. We can all use this information. We can look at the tweet. We can look at the hashtags used. We can use at what are they saying about the paper. It's about the content. It's about a formal thing. So we can characterize or elaborate more advanced indicators considering all this extra information. So what I say is that we could model types of impact, okay, like maybe public attention, social impact, also public understanding of science, also public misunderstanding of science. So for example, if people are tweeting saying good things about a bad paper, if that is something that we can capture, I think it's a plus. Of course, other possibilities include identification of blogs, hashtags, Twitters, news media, etc., so that we can find blogs that we can follow for my work, for my studies. It's also interesting the fact that we can inform scientists and policymakers about communities of attention. So we can find, for example, in a given topic, who are the most important journalists, who are the most important newspapers, who are the most important Twitter users. And this morning it was mentioned several times, so crowdfunding, crowdsourcing of science can also benefit from all these indicators in terms of finding these communities, finding disciplines or subdisciplines that have a strong social attraction. So that's also something that could be supported through Altmetrics. So I think I'm running out of time, but I would like to show you a slide that I made for this conference, so it's not published. So these are the Twitter brokers of science. So these are as in altmetric.com. So these are the most important users. It's a pity that you cannot see the links, but it's a relatively well-connected network. And we can find kind of clusters of the most, so these are the most important in the overall. And we can find some clusters, and also some interesting cases. So for example, this is mathematics papers that has tweeted a lot about mathematics. But the fact that it's only following 3 users suggests that this is probably a bot. This is not a real account. But then we have others like Black Physicists or Health Literature that have followers. They also follow others, and that they discuss literature, maybe in physics, in health, that can be of interest. And this is a way of finding communities of attention around scientific publications. And yeah, this is my last slide.
Great, thank you very much. There's time for questions.
Thank you. That was very interesting. What do you see as promising new business models in impact metrics and delivering indicators? You pointed out that this kind of giving information about one research object is now something like a standard case, but you as well pointed out that this aggregate data gives important hints to scientists, policymakers, and so on. Is there a possible business model in that? Will we see more of that in the future, that we have provision of huge aggregated data sets?
Well, I'm a scientist, so I'm supposed not to know anything about business. But I would say that, for example, one point of development is way of development is indeed data mining. I think that there are a lot of possibilities in mining all this data. Discovering communities of attention, discovering the perception of science in these communities, what they are saying. Say strategic information. Also, for example, finding topics, maybe not main disciplines, but specific topics that are relevant for Twitter users, for news journalists. So this is also something that we can do. If we move to Mendeley, then we could elaborate more advanced indicators, like not only the number of readerships, but also the number of readerships by non-academic users or by some specific group of users. So also in the indicator side, there are possibilities. But my main impression is that, or my preference, if you will, it would be more in the data mining side, in extracting new knowledge from all this wealth of data.
Thank you very much for your talk. It's very interesting to give or to get a coherent picture on the Altmetrics movement, and it's said that it's like a second revolution in scientometrics as well. The whole issue of Altmetrics will change the research on citation networks and so on. And my question is, one research field is, as you said, the correlations between traditional citations and Altmetrics, and there's not yet any idea what the difference means exactly. There is an empirical difference, and it's conceptualized as a complement to citation numbers. So I was wondering how far are the conceptual discussions on it, because that is for me the most interesting point to discuss on the question of public attention versus social impact versus research impact. What is the whole hype about?
Thank you. It's a very nice, a very good question. We have started to do some discussion on the more theoretical and conceptual side. So, for example, something we have done is discuss the theories that are applied for citations, in this case for Altmetrics. And, for example, two theories that we have discussed in citation is the normative theory. So the normative theory basically says that the reasons why we cite is because we have some norms that Merton named as the ethos of science, like communism, universalism, all these norms. So the whole idea is that we understand citations because we understand the norms that surround them, that why people give these citations. Of course, there is the other theory, the social constructivist, that says, no, all these theories, all these norms may or not maybe apply, and people just cite for, in this process of negotiation of the publications to be published, etc., they cite whatever is necessary. So both are probably right, but what more or less point is that So the mechanisms to give citations are different to those that come from Altmetrics. Because in Altmetrics, the norms why people tweet are much different compared to the norms why papers are cited. So, for example, a highly tweeted paper is a paper with a funny abstract. You wouldn't cite a paper just for a funny abstract. You would cite it for a reason, for one of these norms. But you wouldn't cite it, say, well, I'm going to cite this paper because it's funny. Some referee at some point would point, yeah, this citation is maybe not good. So this is more or less what we start to understand, that Altmetrics are fundamentally different compared to citations. That the norms behind them are different.